2017 has been a great year for games, and I've played almost none of them. Without a Nintendo Switch or a particularly healthy bank balance, my purchases and subsequent interactive experiences this year have edged towards the past more than the present. So in lieu of a traditional GOTY list, here are 5 stories from my year in gaming.
Perfect parking space.
Those who would doubt our victory are enemies. Do you truly think you can win?
I wasn't as blown away by Nier Automata as many of you for a number of reasons, some admittedly my own fault. However, I really enjoyed the way the game played with conventional narrative and gaming structures. Nier Automata goes out of its way to establish a rug, then pulls it unceremoniously from under you in its third playthrough. Your second run of the game echoes the events of the first, only from an alternate perspective, with some new content accordingly. Given its predecessor was lauded for the way it reframed the narrative each time you started a new game plus, I expected Automata to follow suit. So, returning again for round 3, I was genuinely surprised to find out that what had been presented as the whole game was in fact only its first half. Route C's opening implies a sort of victory lap as Yortar's forces mop up the last of the mechanized menace on the planet's surface, but quickly things start to go terribly wrong. These opening acts, the decimation of your orbital base, your allies turning against you, the game itself seemingly corrupting in real time, and finally the death of 2B, they set the scene for an incredibly harrowing final act that ultimately culminates in you, the player, being asked to make a significant sacrifice. I like this opening because it's dramatic, discordant, action-packed, and ultimately heartbreaking, but also because it feels like the key to solving a puzzle, helping to unlock the game's true narrative tone. It subverts your expectations by settling you into a formula that works for both new players and fans of the previous entry, and it follows up by really stretching your understanding of the schism between the mechanical and narrative layer of games. I absolutely can see why it's the game of the year for so many people. For the most part, Assassin's Creed Origins is another Assassin's Creed game. One that is a particularly impressive return to form, but an AC game nonetheless. Ubisoft love filling their games with kipple, these redundant MacGuffins that generally add little of value, although on occasion have been used as a proxy for a history lesson I know some will enjoy immensely. Origin's map is huge, but also sectioned into regions denoted by a recommended level range. While you start in Siwa, you can't really venture outside of its invisible boundaries for fear of high-level bandits and hyenas. Whisked off to Alexandria following the completion of the first major task, if you follow the level recommendations, your journey is something of a horseshoe, and you'll end up reaching the Black Desert late in the game. Your time thus far has been something of a predictable loop. Entering a region unfogs that part of the map to reveal a sea of question marks, drawing you to camps, tombs and towns, the occasional oasis and so forth. With the Black Desert, you get nothing. No visible markers, no points of interest, no quests for you to pick up. Just you and a mountain. Climbing up to the peak, you find an encampment and you are given a solitary task: find a place to rest. It turns out this is one of 5 hermit locations found across Egypt, although the game doesn't actually tell you this. So I found a spot of land with a rug, some flowers and incense, and I had a little sit. From this spot I could see Egypt in all its glory. The vast deserts, the pyramids of Giza, the lush metropolis of Memphis, and your own personal origin point, Siwa. This is a reflection on your journey, how far you have come and how far you still have to go. For a game of this caliber to take a sizable chunk of its map and dedicate it to nothing but atmosphere is a nice surprise, and it shows that Ubisoft are listening to feedback, even if they might feel obliged to stick with convention for now. Yakuza 0 is perhaps the strongest entry in the series to date, a masterful return to form for the Dragon of Dojima and his Mad Dog counterpart. The series' strongest suit is its sub-stories, which tie Kazuma Kiryu's emotional development and the beating heart of Kamurocho together. Many, if not most, of these sub-stories end up the same way. A few moments of dialogue before you beat some men senselessly with a bicycle or a traffic cone, before Uncle Kaz, in a moment of infinite generosity, offers some words of wisdom that resonate across cultural borders. There's a particular sub-story that bucks this trend, and it made for a lovely moment of character building in an unusual way. On your travels, you come across a young boy in an alleyway, staring intently at a vending machine. He tells you there's something special in this machine, but his mum gets mad when he asks her about it. Spoiler alert, it's a grot mag. Kazuma agrees to purchase one for the young boy, but he is suddenly beset by a chorus of young women he's convinced will judge him harshly if he's caught in the act. What follows is an incredibly dreadful minigame with a hostile fail condition, but struggle through and Kazuma gets the magazine and has a heart-to-heart with the boy. I love this scene because while Yakuza has a lot of problematic elements when it comes to the representation of women, and in particular women who work in adult industries, this sub-story took the taboo of pornographic material and used it to talk about the perils of adolescence, male insecurity, and how certain things might seem dodgy to some, but they can be instrumental in the process of growing up. Yakuza is such a profoundly human series because it understands how to juxtapose the real and the ridiculous, fleshing out often cartoonish characters with believable flaws and motivations, which all adds up to a strangely immersive experience. Kiwami 2 and The Song of Life can't come soon enough.
Go now. We wait on your signal.
Guerrilla Games' first foray into open world was a roaring success. Horizon is a game that doesn't do anything new, and there are issues with cultural appropriation which I know more qualified critics have addressed. However, the moment-to-moment gameplay is satisfying, the world is gorgeous, the enemy design top-notch, and the story surprisingly good. There are many moments I had within the game that have stayed with me. Being stalked through the jungle by invisible foes, ascending a peak only to come face to face with the Stormbird, reclaiming alcoholic beverages from the stomping ground of a herd of tramplers, hunting down Redmore, a legendary beast carrying the battle scars of a dozen unsuccessful foes. But the one that really stuck with me was a little more innocuous. I was exploring the southern reaches of the map and happened across Sunstone Rock, a compound I later discovered was a prison. The first thing I noticed was this gargantuan beast pulling rocks into the air using what looked like telekinetic powers. It was attacking the prison and a few brave souls were trying to take it down. So I dived in, tear blast arrows in my quiver and ready to raise hell. Looking back, it's kind of obvious that this was a scripted moment, but in the heat of the battle there was this wonderful feeling of fear and exhilaration. It felt like I'd stumbled upon a random happenstance, a wholly personal experience unique to my game, and that is the magic of art. More illusion than reality, studios have become increasingly proficient at carefully curating player experiences to feel organic even when they aren't, and in doing so, they make games better for everyone. I'll be honest with you, I never finished Prey. I came into it straight off the back of Dishonored 2, and by comparison the game felt stiff and awkward to navigate. Plus, I had encountered an ongoing bug that made my character sway side to side even when standing still, which was understandably making me a bit nauseated. Kind of heartbreaking too, because what little I played of the game gave an otherwise great impression. The art direction and world design were otherworldly. The story was intriguing, and there seemed to be a lot going on behind the curtain. In fact, that turn of phrase is most apt in the game's opening hour, a wonderful example of a studio going the extra mile to maintain player immersion. The game opens with you waking up in a swish apartment, complete with a gorgeous view. For the first 20 minutes or so you get dressed, get on a helicopter, go to meet your brother Alex and take part in some laboratory tests. Then things go wrong. You wake up back in your apartment, but something's not right. There's a corpse in the hallway and you can't seem to leave. Then comes the big reveal. You're not in the city. You're not even in a real apartment. The whole thing was a farce. And so begins a journey to discover precisely what happened to you and why you're stuck on an abandoned space station full of cosmic terrors. This opening is brilliant, in particular for how the level was built, and how it lets you peek behind the curtain, there's that phrase again, to see precisely how Alex Yu pulled the wool over your eyes. Exploring this opening area gives you an opportunity to find all of the revolving walls and simulators built specifically to create the illusion of travelling between two distinct spaces. You can see where scientists observed you, how two hallways were in fact one and the same. It's an elaborate set for a stage play, both allegorically and almost literally, and even though I bounced off the game proper, it is perhaps my favourite piece of level design this year. What I have hopefully conveyed in this video is the branching subjectivity of the human experience. GOTY lists are valuable because they validate the hard work of dedicated teams, and they can give an idea of a consensus around which games we should be paying attention to. However, one can have just as much fun with Shadow of the Colossus as they can with Imagined Babies, and even games I wasn't all that keen on had something to offer. Great mechanics leave you smiling, and a profound narrative has its merits, and sometimes it's just something stupid that sticks with you weeks down the line, like Nier Automata's machine on a break. It's also important not to think of games as being finite things. As critics, many of us crawl through storm and sleet in pursuit of the new, aiming our reticules forward with blinkers so pronounced that often stuff gets lost to time. In the past I missed out on so much because I was obsessed with keeping up with the curve, and yet, this year, in my impoverished state, editing videos on bloody Movie Maker of all things, I've led a rich gaming life. Engaging with titles like Hitman 2016, Life is Strange, Downwell, Doom, and even replaying Final Fantasy IX. 2017 has been a year of astonishing games. It's also been a year of just really good ones too. Don't forget them.